Pretty rare Roland Rhythm 330. These are unique in that they have their own built-in speaker. So if you listen to this, this is just the Roland right now. And this is the balance control. It's how much hi-hat or snare basically you get. Notice the bass drum drops off on it here. Starts coming back. Let's bring it up a little bit and add to it. Now it's going into this Kastam Echo machine. Here's our tempo control, kind of unique. Has a metronome built into it, also kind of unique. You can add a little echo to this beast. Anyway, I go through this and get it working. There's some back capacitors and fix a few other things with it. So if you want to check it out, stick around. If you're just here for the demo, you can skip to the end. I do a lot of soldering and babbling. It's all solder, babble, rap to me. That's a little Alan Parsons Project reference. But there's a lot of soldering and babbling. So if you're not into solder babble, you might want to skip through that 20-minute section where I kind of, you know, lose it. But if you feel like it, stick around and we'll go through this thing and get it dialed in. Let's start with a quick inspection. I mean, it all looks pretty good. And I plugged it in briefly. It's pretty noisy, and half the switches don't seem to really be functioning quite right. So we've got to get in there and clean it up. And I'm just curious what it looks like inside. I've never had one of these before. So let's take a quick look at it. We'll start by pulling these screws. Alright, let's get her out. Front or back? They usually come out the front. Seems a little stubborn. I think that back usually come out the back. This is unique that it's got a speaker inside of it, which all the other drum machines of this era, you know, the Ace Tones, the TR lines, none of those have a speaker inside. So that's kind of unique. So let's take a look at it out. Speaker looks to be in good shape. You know, flashbacks to installing those 6x9s in the back of my cars in high school. I mean, every car I had, first thing I did is put a fresh pair of Pioneer 6x9s or some Jensen's, hook up a 40-watt EQ, and just rock out the ride. All right, we got a big slider. This is our tempo control. And then we've just got an on-off switch. And our metronome on-off, and a balance, which controls how much treble or bass, essentially. It's kind of odd in that respect. It's more hi-hat cymbal when you go this way, and more kick drum bass when you go this way. So I'm going to start here by just giving it a good look over, and from what I can see, you know, we don't have any obvious issues here. You know, no leaky caps or anything like that. So I think I'll start by just cleaning those switches and see what that does for us. I think we'll just clean up this jack as long as we're right here. Freaky habit I have. I always go back a second time, which I don't, you know, doesn't make any sense. Here we go. She's plugged in, she's turned on, she's powered up, and here we go. We're getting a hum. So again, here's how that balance works. It's just bass drum, and we get more hi-hat. Okay, that's a nice sound actually, that one. I'm not getting anything out of the external amp. Alright, we definitely have some issues here. I'm going to take a alright, you notice the difference there. We still get the hum, but the crackle disappears when we touch this cap. So we definitely can start there. Well, we found it. Isn't that wonderful? So we're going to recap this whole board, I think. But clearly there's our hum and there's our crackle. I don't want to make it do it again, but you just heard it disappear. So how wonderful is that? We're not always that lucky. Actually, quite rarely are we that lucky. Well, wonderful. Okay, I think I'm going to arrange the caps I need to do this board, and I'll pull this off, and then we'll just get started on that. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to have these large caps. Oop. Oh, we can do it. All right, let's not press our luck here, shall we? No whammies so far. All right, let me get the caps, and we'll get rolling on this. As long as I have two here, I thought it'd be kind of interesting just to compare the inside of this with the CR68, and you can see how much the circuit board technology has progressed inside of a CR68. I mean, much more of a printed board, where this thing is really quite point to point. You know, there's very little, there's nothing printed like that. So, you know, leaps and bounds, you know, depending on how you feel about things in just a few years. Okay, I'm assembling the caps here that I need, and these are 25 volt 470, and I've got those. These are 35 470s, and I don't have any 35s, but I got 50s. So keep in mind, you can go higher voltage, but you want to stay the same, you know, microfarads or farads or UF, however you want to refer to them as. I think this is a 50 volt 1 UF. These two I can't quite read from where I'm at. Well, this is a 220 16 volt. This I can't read, and I can't fix it from where I'm at. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this board, and then we'll be able to figure out what those are. Before I get started on anything like this, I like to get all the caps out and kind of pre-arrange so that I'm not fumbling around. And also, you know, just to be certain that I have them before I get started, so I don't want to get into this and then find out I don't have one or two caps I need. Let's see if here's a good magnet. Should be able. Hey, I got a neighbor cat. Has been coming around lately, so he's right behind us, checking us out. I'll spin this around and let you see him. What's up, kitty? Sneaking in behind me and hanging out. My door's open. I love cats, but I got a bit of an issue here. We got an old lady. She isn't even that old, but she's certainly annoying. Lives next door, and she doesn't have a friend in the world, so she feeds all these cats and allows them to have babies, you know. So there's stray cats all over the place. They're fed next door, but really have no home. it's not good, and it causes some stress. Okay, this is a 1647. So let me write these down. Okay, we got a 16 volt 47. We've got $16 220. We got 51 times 2. And then we got the two big ones that we need. 4 big ones. All right, I'm gonna get the iron out and get it warmed up, and I think we'll go ahead and do these right now. Okay, I've got all the caps assembled here. I was able to find everything I need, and basically just a couple. I'm going a little bit higher voltage than I need to. Maybe even just 2, but anyway, it's not that important. But let's see if the best way for me to do this would be this way, or I think this way. All right, we're going to start with these this 35. Oddly, this is a 35, this is a 25, they're the same size, but I'm going to replace both with 50s because it's all I have at the moment. So we want to make sure we keep track of our orientation. The negative is here, so we just got to remember that. And let's see if our iron is warm enough. Yeah. All right. I think I'll use my super sucker for this. I can't really show you what I'm doing here, but kind of get the gist. Ooh, we're dropping our iron is what we're doing. Here we go. So I want to get you know, I don't want to put any undue force on this circuit board, so I'm going to try to get as much solder off the board so I can easily pull these things out. Wasn't a very good suck. All right, that might do it. Not quite. When we get to a certain point, you know, then we can just kind of wiggle. This is an extremely stubborn cap. And sometimes there's a little adhesive on there, but doesn't. Oh, we should have paid more attention. See what's happening here? It's a good thing I looked. We're glued to the side of this little radiator here, so let's trim that. So we're not fighting that. Now we can almost get it out. It must still be connected somewhere. Yeah, we're glued to the circuit board a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna pay a little bit more attention. Okay, remember negative is up top. Now, this one, the negative is this way. All right, so we're gonna make a quick note of that. Top of the board, and it's not the best note I've ever made to myself, but I think it's gonna work. Okay, let's try this next pair. Negative is this way. If you forget, you can figure it out by looking at the board, but that takes a little time and energy, so it's best to just make notes. It's a toss-up. You know, I'm going to demonstrate both, even though you're probably not seeing either. But this solder wick works really well, and sometimes, you know, I like to use the sucker. Other times the wick seems to be a better method. And I realize you're probably not seeing much here. We're really not having a ton of luck. Okay, are we glued? I don't feel any glue on this one, so we're going to just try to kind of do the pivot, one side pivot, and then the second side pivot, and then usually the third pivot gets you out of there. We had a little bit of glue. Okay, now this one doesn't matter because we're replacing both with 50s, but let's remember we had negative going that way. Okay, see if we can run that in there. And then we had negative going up. That's just the way we like negatives. I like to see them going up. There we go. Let's get those in. Went down to the record store today and scored some just beauties. Got a couple old Elvises. I got a Nilsson in the evening, a little Schmilson. Nilsson Schmilson, which I've already played and really enjoyed. Kind of big bandy, kind of lounge music sound and stuff. And what else? Couple Yes albums. Bob Dylan's benefit concert for Hurricane Carter, a bootleg. That's a nice one. Australian boot from late 70s. All right, those are in. What else did I get? I can take a look. Let me just flip through them real quick. An Elvis GI Blues, Styx, CCR, Hank Williams, Wings at the Speed of Sound, I already got it. The Byrds Greatest Hits. I was thinking about the Byrds Greatest Hits, looking at it. 4 of the songs are Bob Dylan songs, but it's the Byrds Greatest Hits. It's kind of a misnomer, isn't it? I told my buddies they should just call it the Byrds Greatest Covers, because, you know, you're basically doing Bob. Okay, those are in, and we'll get a little something on there later. Next up, we got these two 25 470s. Are going to replace these two. Let's just double check them. 25 470s. Both negatives are pointing down. It's not the way we like it. Let's get these out. All right, these are, I just kind of did a push on one side, heat it up, and push on the opposite side till it pops out, and then heat this side and push out till it pops out. There wasn't much on these, so if there's a ton of solder, then I'll go for the sucker method. Let me check to see how much goo is on this. A fair amount of goo, so we're gonna see if we can slice that. We don't want to damage the board or cut any wires nearby, but we're going to sever the glue. All right, here we go. One side. And got them. All right, so there they are. And Negatives pointing down, remember? So let's take these and we'll get the negative pointing down. It's somewhat interesting. I mean, not fascinating, but a little bit interesting that this 25 volt 470 has gone from this size to this size in 40 years. But the 1UF has not changed in size at all. It's kind of interesting that they've weren't able to shrink that one apparently, or what? Alright, we got to make some room in the solder for this one. I apologize you're not seeing this, but if I turned it around, you'd be looking at the speaker anyway. I don't think you'd still be able to see it. And it's just, this is a much better way for me to be working. So, how about that? Let's do this. Now that they're in, I can solder them this direction. Alright, let's see, it still isn't a great way for me to be working, so alright, are you seeing anything? Yeah. Okay, the best method here is to heat up the cap wire and then start getting it onto the board, because that requires a lot more heat than the board does. The least amount of time required is best, and I spent a fair amount of time down there. You don't want to heat up stuff, you know, more than you need to. Something's caught in there. Well, I'm in a group over here called the Good Old Boys, and we're just a group of solo artists that book ourselves at the same venue on the same night, but we all do our own sets of solo acoustic singing, songwriting, playing. And we had our first real combined show since COVID hit. And it was a banger. We had a pretty good time. I was able to really consume a lot of alcohol, which was not the plan going in, but you know, figured there was some likelihood of it happening, but anyway, was able to suck a bunch of booze down. But everybody sounded pretty good. I think I had 4 sets, and one of my sets, I had a little bit of guitar issue. I just wasn't getting the sound I was hoping for. I was playing an old Yamaha custom guitar with a slip-in pickup, and it sounded really good in the house here before I left, but it just wasn't getting quite loud enough for me. Okay, let's double check. That's a 50 volt 1UF. Here's our 50 volt 1UFs. And the negative was facing up. And if you forget this, here's how you can figure this out. Let's bring this back down. So typically the negative runs, you know, it's a big swath of negative all the way around here on your circuit board. So if you forget which one was negative, you can look at a neighboring one that hasn't been removed ideally, but this one we've already replaced, but it's easy for you to see. It's the negative side of the cap, and that's into the board on that big negative swath. So, you know, if you do get confused as to which way it went, that's the way to do it. Just figure out where all the other negatives are tying into that board, and then you can feel pretty good that you're getting it back in the right orientation. don't know if you're hearing that, but I'm getting a little hungry down here. I don't know when I'm going to learn, and I think it's right now, but I just always throw these little trimmings from the caps over here, and eventually they end up in my socks. So I'm going to keep this thing around, this magnetic cup, and I'm going to throw them towards that. All right, let's do it. There's one more cap down here. We're going to see if it needs it. If it sounds good without it, I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so next up, we've got the 1647. So let's find our 1647, and there it is. And the negative is out. Okay, there's an awful lot of solder on this board, so we're gonna just have to try to heat this up. So we're gonna get it in there, and then we'll heat up that little pool. Should be able to shove her through. And then we'll line this one up. Okay. Get that in there. I think I'm going to do this one, and then we'll solder them together. This one, is, you can see it's broke loose from the board, and that's where the snap, crackle, pop was coming from. So let's get this one out. This is our 16 volt 220, and that's kind of an odd shaped little buddy here, 16 volt 220. We'll pull this one out. Okay, I'm not going to solder that one in because it's going to be a lot easier to get to this one with that out. All right, so let's remember our negative is pointing down on this one. Okay, and just to double check, we got a 50 volt 1 UF. We got a 50 volt 1 UF. The negative is pointing down. All right, and then let's grab this one, and the negative is pointing out. And this one needs a little heating. Okay, now we got everything in, and we're looking pretty straight. And now I'll solder the whole works in one go. Here we go. Try to breathe as little of that as possible. I probably could clean this tip, but we're almost there. Okay, I think we got her, folks. Let me unplug this, and we'll trim those down. Watch what I do next. put those in the cup, not in my sock. So, we're learning. 51. 51's the magic age where you start learning. If you're using me as a guide. Okay, you know, Wise Man would do this one, but it sounded pretty good, and I like to retain as much originality as possible. So let's just go with those and see how we sound. We'll flip this back down. And I'll run those screws back in. I'm going to try to figure out some kind of, I don't really have any silicone here, so I'm going to have to run and get something, but I want to put something on those caps to keep those together. It's a little less important on a drum machine without a speaker, but I think with that kind of, you know, the heavy bass that must clearly emanate out of that massive speaker, probably throw some vibrations around. Okay, you excited? I certainly am. Let's see what's going on. All right. So here's our little collection of caps. And we'll give those a chuck into the garbage can. And let's plug it in, see what happens. Okay, we're plugged in, we're powered on, and we're going to try the speaker first. So metronome on. I wonder how that works. I'm not hearing any metronome. See this? Metronome on, off, on. Oh, metronome. All right, it's my first one of these, like I mentioned. So you set it to metronome and turn the metronome on, and then you've got a metronome. All right, that was kind of fun to learn. We'll turn that off, and we'll go back to rock and roll. Let's just go right through them all so we know we got them. Waltz. All right. We're going to turn that up so we kind of hear them quickly. I'd say we got it. Now, just for good measure, I'm going to give these the old wiggle. All right. You don't like to, that one doesn't like to be touched, but it's, you know, everything seems to be in good order. All right. Well, that was easy enough, wasn't it? But now, let's make sure we're getting sound out of the rear here. I'm going to plug in this, which is going to my PA, and external amp should be good. Let's turn that back on. So now I'm not getting anything out of the external amp. Oh, I am. I take that back. All right, I figured that it would somehow trigger the speaker to go off, but it doesn't. So you get the speaker and you get the external amp speaker, but there's no way to turn off that speaker apparently. So, all right, now let's check that foot switch, make sure that's working. Here's a little foot switch I made up, and it's just a simple on-off switch and a piece of rubber onto a jack, but it's an easy way to make sure the foot switch is working. right. Hey people, we're looking great. Next up, I'm just going to clean it up and you know, we'll polish everything up and put it back together. I might do that tomorrow because it's you know, it's 5:30. Like I said, I'm getting kind of hungry, so you may see me tomorrow on that aspect of it. Okay, I decided to keep going on this a little while, so I've unplugged it, and we're going to clean up. Let's see if this is, we'll just leave it on. I think I'll clean it up the way it is. And let's start here. I've made these little things. These are for RCAs primarily. These are for bigger nuts. But it allows me to clean up these, you know, anything like this without endangering the faceplate. So let's just give this a quick run around. That's probably enough. It doesn't need much. That's just a little bit of dish soap. And I'm not putting much pressure on this because I don't want to obviously damage anything, but we're going to try to get off a little bit of that filth on there. And that seems to be working pretty good. However, I think like anything that was around in the 70s, somebody smoked around this one a little bit. And it seems like we've got a little bit of tobacco stain on there. So I'm going to take a Q-tip and just a little tiny bit of, ironically, lighter fluid, which seems to really work well. Gets the cigarettes going, and it takes cigarette buildup off of things. But let me just do a little, this part's hidden over here, you can see, so I just want to kind of do a quick test and see if I want to go over the rest of this or not. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be doing much here. We've got a pretty big stain right here. I'm going to just see if this gives us much of a result. Yeah, I think we're going to call that good. I don't want to touch any of the black with this, and I don't want to have too clean of a zone in the middle either. So I think we're gonna live with that. It's, the dish soap improved it enough that the last thing we want to do is take any of the lettering off. So we'll just go with that. My cat's back. I say my, clearly not mine. All right, I don't think you need to watch me do all of this, but you can see what's happening there. We're getting a fair amount of stuff off. So I'm going to work on the front a little bit. We'll clean up the back, and I'll show you the back here. So same thing with these little covers work really well, and we'll just slip that over. I'll give that a couple of turns. thing, I want to be really careful not to damage these stickers or anything that are on here. But I think it looks a lot better when you get some of that little bit of surface rust off, and again, just years of grime and dust. All right, we'll take that. Thing's looking pretty good. And then I like to run down the full length of the cord, which you won't be able to see this really, but you can imagine what this looks like. I've said it in other videos, but this allows me to inspect the cord all the way down, make sure there isn't a mouse nibble on there that I wasn't aware of. And you can see what that does. That's the third wipe through, so we're definitely cleaning them up. That's the fourth wipe. We could probably do that again and again. See if we can get a year off of this. And you notice I put a lot of years on my things, and most of these cables have a year on them, so you can kind of date the machine based on the year of the cord. The year of the cord. This one doesn't. There's writing on it, but doesn't seem to be dated. POT 64, but that's not our date. So no year on this one. Okay, I think we're going to. I did a little toothbrush action, but we're going to try just a rag and see if we can get any more of an improvement on this. All right, I think we're going to call it good. I don't see a lot of improvement, and again, the last thing I want to do is take any of the, that screen printed writing off the face. So we're going to leave it at that. But we're certainly better than we were. You want to stay away from the white paint on these because you can easily fleck that off if you're going to go after a super clean on one of your machines there. All right, I think that's going to do it. Again, it's better to be less clean than damaged. Goes without saying. If you're wondering what the red tape is for, it's just so I can find it, because when these things are laying around without the tape on it, they quite often just disappear. So this just allows me to find that thing easy enough. Okay, quick dusting of the speaker. You see there's a fair amount of stuff on there. And I think we'll go ahead and put this one back together. It was fun checking it out. And it sounds a lot better. Now, you hear how that balance controls the amount of hi-hat versus bass. On a couple of settings it's awful heavy, and you can go in and tweak each one of these little mini pots in here, and it'll change how much on a lot of these settings, how much hi-hat cymbal you get and how much bass, etc. I'm going to leave it as it is. It sounds all right. Then I'll leave it to the next person if they want a little bit more hi-hat or less. You can go in here and you can do these with your fingernail, really. You can see how I can just turn that. I'll put it back to where it was. But you can really tweak the sound of these by getting in here and doing these little mini adjustments. Okay, I'm going to take this same rag and clean up the outer wood cover, and then I'll put it back together. Okay, there was a little bit of adhesive right here from some old name tag or something, and I carefully took the Q-tip and a little bit of lighter fluid and was able to get the adhesive off. These two nuts, screws, are showing some corrosion, so I'm going to go over and clean those two up. The other two are looking pretty good. We'll just let those go, but I'll clean those up and I'll be right back. Okay, I didn't get carried away with these. If you wire brush on them too long, you'll go down to the brass that's underneath, or copper. So I just cleaned them up just enough. All right, let's get these two back together. I've got my rotisserie back up here. Now, I try to be careful and line up the holes exactly where they were, so you can see, I'm not sure if you can, but let's get you over here and see. But if you look closely, you can see where the machine used to line up, so we want to line it back up to that spot, which is right there. I don't want to make a new circular divot in this board, so we want to carefully line it up exactly where it was before. Which is right there. I like to do the last few turns by hand, just because, electric driver can get away from you from time to time. All right, I'm gonna call that a success. It's looking good. It's sounding good. She should be ready for another 40 years. Beautiful. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention when I put this back together. A little bit of the cloth from that speaker grill has made its way in here, so it's not the end of the world, but I'm going to take the screws back out and then back this up and push those in, because I just can't stand to look at that. All right, anyway, we're done, people. Thanks for tuning in here. I'm going to hook this up to a tape echo, I think, and see how it sounds. Okay, I hooked it up to this echo machine. It's a Kastam echo chamber. This thing, I'm really a huge fan of these things. They're compact and simple 8 tracks, but they really provide quite a bit of control and sound with a small package. So let's just demo a few things through here. We'll start with just running through it. Here's the waltz. We'll do a little bit faster pace and just run through the settings on it. Maybe I'll take a few of these repeats off for now. I'll just demo the unit actually. How about that? It's got a really slow, slow setting on it. I mentioned this in the video, but there's a lot of pots in here, and you can tweak how much of that cymbal you get and kind of alter the way that thing sounds, you know. That's the metronome. Let's go back to rock. I kind of like this one, to be honest with you. I like it without much of that hi-hat. And again, this is just the Rhythm 330 by itself. I think you're getting a feel for it. Let's go back to this thing on its own so you can just hear it again by itself. Anyway, it's working terrific, and they're really unique machines, I think. You know, just that tempo control on the slider, the fact that it has a metronome on it. All right, thanks for checking it out. Both of these are available on Reverb for the time being. I don't know how long they'll be up there, but you know, they're there right now. If you're interested in them, you can check them out. I've gone through this thing completely too, and you know, demag the heads and clean the pots and clean all the tape heads. So I try to make these things as nice as I can for you. Hopefully they'll last another 50 years. Thanks.